It's okay to not be okay, but just don't stay there. I was thinking about this the other day. For all those who perhaps are following their faith, growing in virtue, we all kind of coming to a point where we start to make bigger and bigger steps forward. A lot of times when you're starting, sometimes it's just avoiding the near occasion of sin, maybe changing your group of friends, not going into settings that you're gonna fall into sin. But as the years pass by, and this happens to some people quicker than others, but eventually those bad tendencies of falling into mortal sin, they just don't happen as often. And that could lead to some spiritual pride, because you start to see yourself as someone who's good or doing better. But God be praised, God humbles you really quick. And with time, you come to know that those are just normal progressions in the spiritual life. It's kind of like a ladder, right? Or taking steps forward. We're trying to get to heaven. And every time you grow in virtue, every time you stop committing sins, every time you try to do the virtuous thing, helping your neighbors, frequenting the sacraments, healing those interior wounds, it's like taking a step forward. But we can't always take a step forward. And I think that's one of the problems we have, at least here in the US, maybe in Mexico and other parts of the world, where we're so caught up in more and more and more in progression. And if you made 1,000, then you want to make 2,000. If you got 100 views, you want to reach 1,000. And here in YouTube, if you reach 100 subscribers, you want to go to the 500, 1,000, and then 1,000,000. And it's like, it just never ends. And it shouldn't be like that with our spiritual life. The spiritual life really depends on the grace of God. So if God determines that you reach a certain point where you just can't go forward, and it feels like you're actually taking steps back, the lie of the enemy is that you are somehow bad, or you're somehow not protected by God. This message goes more for those souls who St. Ignatius of Loyola would describe as the second rule. Those who have already passed that first stage of the spiritual life, who are not caught up in the mortal sin after mortal sin, but who are taking steps to progress in the spiritual life. At some point, it's gonna feel like you're taking many steps backward. And it's gonna be scary, because you're gonna ask yourself, like, I've come this far. I've made so much progress. Like, why am I going back to certain issues that I had in the past? I thought I surpassed them. And the truth is that God permits it for our own sanctification. You can fall into pride, assuming that you should be somewhere higher than you're currently at, or you could fall into despair. And those are all places where the enemy will try to kind of trick you. So the solution is to have the mindset of, if I am in this situation and it's embarrassing, it almost feels like the whole world can see my messiness. Then to be okay with it. Not necessarily to embrace it like, oh, I'm gonna stay here. Let's say I'm sinning, that I'm gonna continue to sin even more proudly, but rather to understand your own human limitations and recognize the truth and the beauty that a soul that has given themselves completely to God cannot fail. Yes, they could take steps back, but even those steps that seem like it's backwards is progression towards your sanctification, which technically would be a step forward. To those who have done a consecration to Jesus through Mary, I want you to remember one of those duties that we have to Mary, which is to give her everything, the value of our good works, every situation that we experience, receiving it as coming from her own hands. So if you're in a rut, if you're kind of just laying there, kind of like, dang, like what the heck, understand that Our Lady can bring good out of that moment. So I want you to picture that when you're there kind of just in a rut, instead of taking a step forward or taking a step down, just kind of looking up to heaven and just kind of like, why God, why is this happening? Meanwhile, you don't even realize that Our Lady has sent a bunch of angels to kind of put you on a cloud to slowly lift you upwards. So even though to your own body, your own experience, it looks like you're stuck there, maybe even going downward, Our Lady is still lifting you up. And in doing so, you are embracing your own human limitations, you're relying fully on the providence of God, and you're not letting the enemy poke you or make fun of you. So yes, it's okay to feel like it's not okay. Just don't stay there. Trust in the providence of God, and may Our Lady continue to protect you and to guide you.